right, you guys. It's a bit of a shit show around here, if you know anything about the stream. So we got Chris. He's on the other camera, as you can see. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get to it. We'll just make sure you guys are respectful. I'm not opening up for questions at this time. If he wants to open up for questions, at toward the end, that's fine. But at this point, I don't expect that. So, with that said, thanks for being here, you guys. Okay. Don't know which one of these is. Second to fix the audio now, of course. Okay, I think they can hear you now. You guys are gonna have to tell me. If you can hear him okay, or if he's too quiet or too loud, or if I'm too quiet or too loud, so on and so forth. And I'm gonna kill the music.
All right, and I was confused there for a second. Can you guys hear me?
I think I could hear you, and I saw you going on. I saw it going out on stream. When I hold the space button,
all right, now I got a feedback loop. So the thing that's going on is we're on the Zoom together, so I'm not hearing you through that. So I can only hear you through the live stream. So right now I'm doing the whole talk with a delay thing, and I have myself talking in my ear, which is driving me insane.
All right, so I just took off the push to talk from Zoom because it's the same key as my music, so it was causing me some problems. So now I'm in Zoom and I'm not using push to talk. So if you want to mute the stream, you can do that, and we can have no delay.
Yeah, now it's good. Yeah, I was doing the whole bad iPhone app thing where it repeats what you say, just slightly delayed, and it makes you so you can't actually think straight.
Yeah, that's super sweet.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's pretty standard for this stream. All right, so how's it going, man?
Exhausting.
Yeah, buddy. Well, you have insane hours, man. I think my hours are crazy. I go to bed at 4 a.m. Eastern, and I swear I'll get up and still see you're on at 5:30. I don't know if you're still on or if you're getting up that early, but it's
between 3 and 4 a.m. every morning.
Jeez.
Get as much of my required day's work in before my daughter and wife get up and become a distraction.
Nice.
So for me, it is I get up early and then get in time, but I also still have to work later in the day. But a lot of times during the day, I'm just kind of scattered on and off. But there's a lot of times where I have to start something and it's going to take 2 hours or something, and I just leave for 2 hours or whatever. So yeah, I'm an early guy, not a late guy.
Wow. Well, that's crazy. I mean, it makes sense though. I guess you divvied your time differently than works for you. So I've prefaced or I've prepared chat. I've let them know that essentially I'm not gonna open chat up for questions later. Maybe toward the end, if you wish to, then that's fine. You can. But I think at this point there's some questions that I didn't get answered, or that didn't get answered, that I think a lot of people are interested in, and they can always come to your stream to ask you questions directly. So when they have questions about one thing or another that they find super interesting, they have that kind of direct, and that's one of the best parts about you guys, the development team in general, but also this game, is just that very personal, direct access that you guys allow, which is pretty fantastic. So I already let them know. They can ask as many questions as they want, but feel free to just ignore them.
I'm usually good about answering pretty much any question that comes to me. But
Yeah.
you have questions?
I do. So my questions are more systems related. So
Okay.
let me explain what that means. Everything's a system, right? So crafting's a system. You can break crafting down into cooking and alchemy and yada yada, so on and so forth. So what I'm interested in is specifically certain systems, and then the most important aspect to me is of about each of these systems is their current state. Are you
Mhm.
happy? Are you happy with it? If you're not happy with it, um, what what do you want from that system, and then what kind of timeline? Obviously, I'm not asking for like next Thursday this thing's going to be fixed, or in 4 months this is going to be fixed, because you know what happens if you start giving deadlines and dates.
Oh yeah.
You never
Oh,
make them. It'll never happen, and then people come on your stream and they get all hairy about, why isn't this thing you said was going to be done by this time not done by that time? And then, so I'm not asking for timelines like 3 months from now, or even first quarter. Something more broad is fine by me. Before the end of the game, or before that we turn the servers off, is a little broad, but somewhere in between next week and before the servers turn off is kind of what I'm hoping for. And more directly, like episode 2, episode 3, episode 5. I don't even know if we're still on a 5 episode trajectory. I know at one point that was the intention, but I guess we can start off with that. Has that changed?
I don't think that's changed. That's something Richard actually has a story arc designed that goes through 5 episodes. So he does not have the full books written. We've got books for the episode 1 and episode 2 that are, of course, they're not that tied. They do share some of the stuff, fiction with the game. But Richard has a full storyline for
Okay.
the first 5 episodes. So in that sense, I don't have any plans on changing that. Again, it's always the challenge of when do we say episode 2 is done and say now we're moving on to episode 3, and how long does that take? So that obviously is going to take a while. We want to get a better story going in this one. We've got at least a dozen scenes to make. Still, after having 4 or 5 new scenes, we've got at least a dozen more scenes to make, and so timeline for that. I think at one point, again, this was probably last year, that we would have episode 2 done by the end of this year. I
Well,
think
yeah.
everybody knew that wasn't going to happen. That wasn't going to happen before the pandemic, and even if we expanded our team size, I think.
Well, and I think the timelines were very, very from the very beginning. They were always very man. The word I'm looking for escapes me, but uh, they were optimistic. Put
Yeah.
it that way, very optimistic. And so I never really put any. I never put any confidence, not because I didn't have confidence in the team. It's just that like I just didn't see how you guys were going to do it. Having some development background myself, not game development but software development, I just the development cycles. I didn't. Yeah, you didn't have a big enough team. If you had a
Yeah.
Microsoft-sized team, maybe you could have managed that.
And a lot of it depended on was based on building the team, expanding the team,
Yeah.
which things have actually been, since people can data mine our stuff, they can see that things have actually been growing. The August, July was our highest month in a year, and August was almost exactly the same as July. So we had our 2 best months in the past 12 months. Just now,
Nice.
more than it's almost 18 months since we had months that good.
GG.
So our numbers are actually growing. Again, I think this came up. I brought this up on one of my streams. Of players that we discovered, players can data mine the public API defined store items sold. But what a lot of people don't realize is that doesn't make up even half of the total revenue. But it's still not enough to expand the team significantly. We have expanded the team a little bit. We'll probably be expanding the team a little bit more. But yeah, there's no way it's going to achieve that goal. If we had this level of growth that we've seen over the last 4 months, then we probably would be growing the team by now. But we'll get there. It's just taking a little longer than we expected.
Nice. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that we're still on that episodic path. At least for now. And if it changes, it changes. That's the type of thing that happens in this type of development and in game development in general. But I'm glad to hear that at least for now, we're still headed down that, because that's one of the things that I've always been hopeful for is, the continued addition of content over that long period of time. We're talking at least probably 10 years over 5 episodes, if each episode takes 2 years.
Yep.
So, and that's what I've always wanted, is long term, the ability to get, because I mean, look, if you can see the stream, the type of things that I do in games like this is deco. This stuff is not something I put up and then just tear down because, well, I did it and now I'm done. I want it to be here. I want, literally, I'm trying to essentially buy out this entire block of the wharfs and make it nice, right?
Yep.
As a demonstration of what the game can do and what it can be. So, and I want it to be around. That's like the whole point. So, I'm glad to hear that. I think maybe and since I just pointed it out, deco, right? Deco, housing and decoration and crafting, these things all kind of go hand in hand, I guess, with the store. But we kind of talked about the store last time you were on, so I'm not too worried. I'm not really too concerned about the store stuff. I understand it is what it is, and we had some talk on that. Um, where do you how do you what is your opinion on deco, the current state of deco? Where do you guys see deco going? And when I say deco, I'm talking about obviously what I'm doing here, but the type of deco that we have available to us, the ratio of deco in the store to the craftable deco,
Mm-hmm.
and is there talk or work to change that ratio? Is there big changes coming for deco and stuff like that? So
Probably the biggest improvement to deco that has happened in the last year is not a system or a specific item, but actually a person. Adding Elgarion to the team has been amazing for the deco people, whether they know it or not. He's been going in and he immediately wanted to learn how to do stuff. He wanted to learn how to go and fix decos and improve decos and make things, so they can be placed on on pots and make them change how they can be mounted to walls, and doing a lot of that type of just little tweak type stuff. As far as where it's going and changes that are coming, I mean, one of the big things, the system's pretty strong already. I think most people believe it's one of the stronger systems in the game, if not the strongest. I think the thing where we could use some improvements on it right now, that'll probably happen within the next year, are going to be things like ways to deco entire houses and package that up as a whole bundle, so you can sell somebody a put it on your vendor a house that's already packaged up, fully decoed or whatever. But that type of stuff, so actual people who are like, they're in the thing they're into is deco, so they can actually set all that stuff up and they can actually fully deco a lot or a house or whatever. But some of that type of mass serialization type stuff and convenience.
yeah, that's an important thing, because when the game first launched, a buddy of mine who still plays, but not like he used to. One of the things he wanted to do was be a realtor in the game. He actually was a realtor not in the game, and he thought, hey, I could do that in the game. And he did for a number of months, almost 6, 8 months, something like that. He was grabbing up lots and selling them to people in game for kodos, for gold, and even at times for money at that point in time. I don't know if you could do that now, but at that point in time, he was able to do that, and it was pretty awesome. It was pretty neat. But one of the things he would really neat to be able to do, because if you think about it, like a lot of people don't want to do deco, but they don't want to live in a house that's just got nothing in it. All they got is a box. And you see, if you run around the wharfs for any time, 90% of the houses here are decoed. I actually get lucky because this particular area of town, well, I own half of it, but the other other half is fairly well decoed. But that's not the case for most towns. So it would be really neat to be able to do that, to be able to box up a house that someone like me has gone through and decoed, and then sell it on the vendor for as a like a prefab
Yeah.
essentially.
And that's the other thing is it doesn't have to be whole houses. I mean, there's people, especially as Elgarion's been getting into the deco system. He's been doing a lot of work to make, even improve and increase the amount of stacking that can go on and improve the rules for how things can be built so that people could build, basically at this point, they've always been able to, build an arena out of actual stone blocks that they crafted or whatever and set up those type things. So it's not just about selling an entire lot. It's like I would like to sell a prefab for, here's an arena that you could package up, making that type of change deco, so you can sell prefabbed constructions people have made. And
Yeah.
then that also becomes something where you can have like a maze where you pick up the entire maze and you can put down a maze on a property rather than having to swap out the entire lot. And you could sell those mazes to people or whatever, garden areas, whatever it is. And of course, we've all seen some of the stuff that like Alphane's done and some of the other guys where they've got crazy. I'm sure they would love to have that type of stuff where they could set up that type of stuff and sell it to other people.
Well, it would also, because you have a lot of some of that stuff is reusable as a, call it a building block.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could prefab that, that saves a lot of time
Oh yeah.
in the setup, because some of that stuff that Elfane does is beyond even my comprehension, to be fully honest. I've been decoing for a long time, and I cannot get over the stuff he does. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. So, but I know it takes ungodly amounts of time, and that's not something everybody has. So that's cool, and that's a really neat idea to be able to do that. Whether it's houses in general, another good example of something that would be nice to prefab is if you go into Serpent's Watch. There is a amphitheater that was
Mm-hmm.
set up by one of the guildmates, and it is insane the amount of effort and time. And that was before like anybody knew about the stuff that Elfane's doing. Um, this was like back when you had to follow rules of physics and stuff. Um, so it's a pretty insane amount of work, and it would be really neat to see those elsewhere in the game.
Yeah. So another thing in terms of just being somewhat related and talking about deco is expanding and using the deco system, because there's pot owners get a lot more freedom than people who own lots in terms of like just a bigger play area to use. That is still also on the plan to make scenes that are basically wilderness scenes that then players can go and deco their own private scenes, so they can set up their own, kind of the similar thing to player dungeons, except at a scene level, an outdoor scene level. But the same type stuff, except they'll have things there. They can add things to it. They can subtract things, and using the deco system for that type stuff as well. So
That would
that's
be
another. That one may not make the end of the year, but that one is. We have most of the tech. The pieces we're missing are getting the content together and setting up some rules for the things you can place. But again, it would it's the same as if you look at how the player dungeons work. It's you start off, there's actually a scene there when you place it. You always start whatever your foyer is the scene that's there, and really it's just going to be a system that uses that initial scene that is a larger scene. So you could actually have like here's a mountainous area, or almost like a pot template except smaller. Except it'd be intended for adventure areas where you can build out outdoor adventure areas. But again,
That's
that is decoing type stuff, and that's the type thing that people like you actually like going around and decorating stuff. I'm sure people would love some of that stuff.
I'd be all over that.
Yeah, and as we continue to expand quest stuff and dialogue stuff, which we will be doing some more of that expansion before the end of the year, that becomes more important too for storytelling type stuff, where having a scene to tell that type stuff, and instead of just a dungeon is kind of important.
Yeah, and that's another good part of the deco system. Whether it's directly deco or not, the storytelling aspect of the game, because it is an RPG after all, and the RP of RPG is role play, right? So there's it's not as vibrant as it once was, but there was and still is a RP community for Shroud of the Avatar. I would like to see that grow, um, and that is one of those things I think would really play into their court, if you will, is being able to set up scenes like that. That's hugely important. Now, yeah, some people would argue otherwise as far as its importance level, but I would say that that's a big one to help bring that RP community. The ones that are not playing as much as they would like to, and the ones that are here who are playing and wishing for more stuff. I mean, I've done countless quests. I guess I could count them technically, but I've done a bunch of different quests that have been written literally by our community, and anything we can do, anything that you guys can do to expand on that, is only going to be good. It's only going to bring those people and give them more things to do and give them more good things to say. Sereni, you make a good point. As a side note, you guys, I am paying attention to chat. And I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring you, though I am essentially ignoring you. But Serenia brings a good point up about conversationalists, because that also ties into the RP side of things that I was just talking about, but also Deco. We mentioned this on the last stream. I'll bring it up again because I find that it is important. The ability to dress the conversationalists, because it's really hard, and vendors for that matter. It's really hard. It's really hard to create a story about a dragon slayer. He looks like a merchant.
Yeah, looks like all the others. That's one I think. So the guy who would be needed to do some of that stuff, most of that stuff really, is one and only. Obviously, some other person could do it, but it would just take him longer. He's actually getting close. He just checked in today. Speaking of plain dress up and fancy stuff like that, he just checked in the first version of mounts. So we've got mounts in game now. We're going to be we'll see if it makes next release, but I think it'll probably make next release. The tech is done. We're going to go through it, run some bugs. We got to also figure out how we're going to get it into game and whether these are like tamed or whatever. But the guy that would need to do that, he's the one that did the mannequins and some of the other stuff. And we've talked about that before, and I don't think it's that big of a deal, that type of thing, but we can make that next on his list because he was actually looking for things.
I don't know if we really want me to talk about mounts, Chris. That's another system.
I see one here I want to answer, which is a night owl. Chris, glad to see you're feeling better. Darian said you weren't feeling well. Yeah, so we don't know what's going on in the Spears household right now. My daughter has had 100-degree fever for like since Saturday. Hasn't really gone down now, but she is, the thing is she runs fever sometimes because she's 6, which is when you start getting your teeth in, your big girl teeth, and so you run a fever. Except then my wife was also running a fever. So I'm the only one that's left the house in a month. So if anybody in the house got sick, it was me, and I brought it home. But I've been feeling kind of run down, but I think some of that's honestly just because I've been working too hard, both on the game and also on house stuff. So we don't know what's going on at Spears' house. The team thinks that we probably have COVID, and we just got the super mild versions of it.
Possible.
That seems pretty unlikely, but we'll see. I mean, we're going to try to take it easy, but I'm trying to take it easy today and tomorrow, and just feel a little less run down.
Yeah, I hope you feel better. I hope they feel better. Hopefully it's not COVID, but you know.
Well, we're going to get it. This is the good version to get, because it's, like I said, I haven't run a fever yet. My wife has run a fever, but it's not much of a fever, and we've just both been super tired and
Yeah, I get you. I get you. Well, that's cool. Well, not cool, but cool that it's not like that it's not super severe.
Yep. Hey, there's a puppy dog.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I guess since someone brought it up, I don't know who it was, but mounts. Um, so talk to us about mounts. I mean, you might have talked to these guys. These guys can see your stream. I generally can't because here, and so I can't be there. Um, so I'm very rarely do I catch your stream. Only like if I'm running late to my stream, and then I'm like, hey, they're streaming. So like while I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing to, know, whatever I'm doing that caused me to be late, then I can actually catch your stream.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I generally don't get to. So they may know more about mounts than what I know, because all I know was that brief little blip that was put on Twitter and then reposted onto Shroud website. And then, of course, I'm sure you saw my response, and I've talked fairly at length about this with my chat. They're all fully aware of my opinion. Also, they're aware that I know that the things, just because I have an opinion about something and I voice that opinion either to you or to anyone else, doesn't mean that I expect that my opinion is going to be the one that happens, right? So anytime, and I'll let you know this too, if I say, hey Chris, I think these are my thoughts on it, that never means Chris, do this because that's what I want to happen. It just means like, hey, this is what I think should happen, and doesn't, then what it is. This is not my game that I'm developing. It's your game that you're developing. So I never
Yeah.
want you to think that I'm like making demands when I put that stuff out there. But my opinion on mounts, I think varies
Here,
greatly from the way that mounts are going to be. So talk to
probably.
us.
So we looked at mounts. We'd not done mounts for a long time, just because to do mounts, like there's kind of two different levels of mounts. There's one that is how 95% of MMOs do mounts. In fact, maybe there's an MMO out there that does mounts better, but most of them are you have a mount and you summon it, poof, it appears, and you jump on it or you appear on it. And then if you get hit or whatever, you get knocked off the mount and the mount disappears. Like, so the mount is not like something that travels with you at all time. It's something you can summon just like a tame pet. Again, I think the only one I know of that does mounts super perfectly well in a lot of ways has been Skyrim, which of course not an MMO, but just the stuff in Skyrim is pretty amazing. But that's kind of, I think some people had in their head that we had to do what Skyrim did or we shouldn't be doing them. But it's really, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, mounts are more as much about role playing and visuals, and then they have in-game effects of travel and carry and those type of things. That it's kind of it's almost another piece of gear that we can give you guys. except it has, obviously much more dramatic visuals. But that's kind of what we're planning on doing. It's like a summon pet where you summon it, poof, it appears. When you get knocked off, it'll disappear. You can ride it around. You won't be able to ride it into houses. We're using the collision. So if you go under tall things, currently it blocks you, but we will probably make that an option. We actually already did the tech for it both ways. One where you run into it, when you run into something, it knocks you off your horse automatically. And one where if you run into something, it just blocks you. You can't go under it. But we're probably going to make that an option because they're both pretty simple versions. And again, some people just want the convenience and some people want the control. They don't want to accidentally be knocked off. They want to be their control. But some people just want the convenience of when I ride into my house, I want to be off my horse. Don't make me hit an extra key. But yeah, so it'll be something you can carry. You'll be able to use it on the overworld. You'll be able to use it in towns. You'll be able to probably use it in dungeons. It's just if there's a low ceiling, you're not going to be able to use it in hallways or something. It'll give you movement buffs, but again, not dramatically more, or probably roughly the same as you can get from some skills. It'll give you, depending on the horse type, it can also give you like carrying capacity. Let's see what else. The other things we're talking about having some options for the horse being a fast travel thing, and rather than it just being you go to the overworld and it takes you somewhere, having it be more like a teleport scroll where it can use teleport scroll type stuff and take you to your other houses, take you to other people's houses, take you to places you memorize, but kind of making it a fancy teleport scroll in addition to the other stuff. But again, trying to give it lots of purpose, lots of reasons to have it, and also making it cool visually.
So that's cool. So that's some of that stuff's new to me. Some of it is, I think, maybe the same thing that I expected. So to clarify, you're going to be able to summon the horse.
Yep.
My question is, does the horse, you're not going to just appear on the horse. The horse comes up to you, then you have to mount it, or you summon it and then the horse just kind of appears and then poof, you're on it.
Yeah, so the way it currently works, again, this is what's already in there, is you summon the horse and it's kind of like summoning a pet or a tamed creature. It appears and then you mount the pet and then you ride the pet around. So you can summon it and have it with you if you want to for some amount of time.
That's the best way to do it, my opinion.
That's again, then people can have their tamed, their horse with them at parties or part of the role playing aspect of things, walking around town where they get off their horse just to walk their horse around. But yeah, that's the way it currently works. We'll see. Again, this is one we'll probably get a lot of player feedback on. That you probably saw the poll that I put up of who thinks the horse should knock you off immediately, who thinks you should have it. And I think I had 30 people chime in, and it was probably 15 very emphatically one way and 15 very emphatically the other way. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff with mounts where it's that type of, everybody has an opinion that is obviously right, except everybody has a different opinion.
Welcome to the internet.
Yes. So I expect we'll get lots of feedback on that stuff. We'll see. I'll see what state this is in. Again, one and only just checked that stuff in this morning. The first version, but living up to the design that I wrote for it. And so we'll probably get that on QA in the not too distant future. It'll probably just be with like a boring horse, but we'll probably get some other stuff in there.
Okay. That's real good. I mean, mounts, in my opinion, and I said this on Twitter and I say it all the time, anytime I talk about it, an absolute necessity for any RPG. Anyone who says it's not is wrong, because I'm always right. But also, if you think about RPGs, the RP part of it, role play is what it's about. So some say you can role play without the mount. You can role play that you have a mount, not ever having the mount. And I say that's ridiculous in today's world of the abilities that we have with games. I think it's just ridiculous to not have them.
Yeah.
But so I'm super glad that you have them. It sounds like a mix of what I would like. It sounds like a mix of the things that I'm hoping for, and that's good, and that's the best I could hope for. It's better than being told, yeah, well, we like your ideas, but we're not going to go with any of those. But it's not quite as good as, hey, we love all your ideas, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So it's like right down the middle. That's one of the things I really like about you guys is you listen to the community, and we kind of get like a halfway in the middle kind of thing, and I think that's the best that you can hope for, because you can't make everybody happy. It's just so. One thing I want to bring up while we're talking about mounts is pack animals and
Yep.
and the original Kickstarter stretch goal stuff. Though we never hit the stretch goals, my understanding, and I think a lot of other people's understanding, was that those things were supposed to happen anyways eventually. Stretch goals were just to make it happen now instead of in 5 years or whenever we get around to it or whenever we get it in, right? So I want to touch on the stretch goal horses, stretch goal mules, pack animals, and those things as well, because there's a lot of people who are, I'm sure that they want to know the answer to this question. Are they coming? Are they not coming? Is that something that maybe we misunderstood the situation, or maybe it's just not feasible, so on and so forth?
So pack animals, I mean, that's going to be kind of mixed in with these with the mount stuff. Some of the tech for it is already there. But yeah, the pack animals was something that Stars actually has always been super passionate about and really, really wants. So the pack animal was one of his pet ideas. But I mean, I like the idea as well. It's another one where we're going to probably make you make a choice though. It may be you get a pack animal or you get to ride a mount. The pack animal may end up being like a mount that just increases how much you can carry. We'd already talked about having mounts that give you increased carrying capacity, so it may just end up working off of that. Right now, we're trying to get to the point of having the mounts to a place where we like them, and making sure that at least some of that tech can be used for the having a pack mule or whatever other type thing. But again, it's going to be another one of those things where you're going to have a choice. Do you go fast? Do you, or does it teleport you, or does it give you like the pack mule where you can carry 3 times as much?
Yeah, that makes sense, and I'm all for one or the other in my opinion. Or even if you wanted to do it this way, where you could ride it until you've loaded it down. Maybe you can ride the mule as long as its bags aren't full or whatever. It's not, because once it's carrying stuff, where are you going to sit? No place for you to sit. So either or for me works. Like if you're riding it, or it's a pack animal, or you can ride it until you start putting stuff in its bags, and then you've got no place to sit. You can't ride it. However you want to do it, it's easy to make up lore to fit that. So that's good. I'm glad you guys are still thinking about pack animals, because I got all the cool pack animals, baby pack animals. So hopefully the next part of this makes me happy.
Yeah, and anybody who bought those things, I think the plan for most of those stretch goal type things we had early on were, when we sold enough of them, we would do the feature then, and that your baby horse or whatever could grow up into a big horse. So that for those things, we'll probably let your baby horse grow up into a big horse, but you'll have to keep your baby horse, because I know some people really like having their baby horse around too.
Aw, that's
We
awesome.
probably won't take away the stuff you had, but we will give you some, semi-premium type item equivalent, just as was promised in those stretch goals.
Nice. Well, I expected as much, but I don't like to Zoom. So let's make the question, and hopefully it works out that way. And I think a lot of people will be happy about that.
Yes.
Um, Before we jump off of mounts, because I know you talk about it a lot already, it's coming. We'll see it soon. Two things.
Mhm.
Um, what's the most extravagant mount you can see in the future? I don't care about a timeline. I more want to know: are we going to be riding dragons at some point? Unicorns, demons, whatever. Um, what's the limit? Where does it end? And then the other thing is, have you ever considered keeping these things on especially specifically mounts, because it's a new system, on QA? Put it on QA, just let us play with it there, and then when it's done, toss it into the live server.
Yeah, and
Thought.
that's always a plan. We do have systems in place, so we can leave stuff on QA more than a release. Uh, I think part of the problem has come up in the past. We just haven't had. We've got like a very dedicated group of people who play on QA that are awesome. And I can't name them all. I know Alley Oop is amazing. There's a couple other people who just give amazing feedback, but that group is pretty small in terms of who's on QA. But it's kind of one of those things, maybe it's if you build it, they will come type thing where, people aren't playing on QA because there's not anything big and exciting and new that stays on QA very long. Pretty much just passes through after a quick bug scan. And maybe that's the type thing, if we had like mounts on QA and left them on there, then hey, guess what? Maybe that would get people there. But in the past, we just haven't seen enough real testing and feedback on stuff. We get a good or bug feedback from a number of people,
I
but
I
you know,
can
it's pretty
I
small.
can nearly guarantee you, if you left mounts on QA, every single person who is interested in mounts would play QA at least until they got sick of the bugs,
Yeah.
and then they would move off of QA. But as you update those and fix the bugs, they'll come back and they'll check it out, and I can almost guarantee it now. Obviously, can't guarantee things in life because it just doesn't work out when you do. But my point is that I think you hit the nail on the head. QA is too much of, so it's a huge, because it's not like it's the same install and it's just a different server. It's a
Yeah.
whole additional install. It's huge. And some people's internet, some people, they don't have good enough internet to download it, or they're on a metered connection, or whatever the excuse or reason is, that they don't play it. They just don't. um, and it's very likely, um, there's probably a number of reasons, but I expect that a lot of that would go away if you left certain things. And then this is something that I argue with a lot. I understand that this is a iterative game design, right? So you put something in, it's a base, and then you work on it and make it better, and that's great, and that's what we've all expected this whole time, right? But
Yep.
the I think at some point you reach, because, and I made this argument before. Maybe it's valid, maybe it's not, but when we were in Kickstarter, this is what was sold to us. It's going to be iterative. You're going to be able to play it from the beginning, and you're going to be able to play all of these scenes from right from the beginning, before, and then you're going to get to see it grow. You're going to get to give feedback. It's going to be awesome. And everybody who kickstarted was like completely on board with that. Every single person. Okay, maybe not every single, but a lot of us were completely on board with that. And as time's gone on, all these new people come in and they don't have any clue about any of that. So what they see is half baked systems. They see systems, and that's why I wanted to focus on systems if you haven't picked up on it yet. They see all these systems that are not done. They're not done because that was never the point. It was never the point to complete the system the first time when you put it in. But now as all these new people come in and they see the half-done system, they say, well, this game's not working. And so then they have to come to our streams, and then we explain it to them, but not everybody does. And we miss a lot of people. And so I think that if you shift some of the bigger systems that are prone, first off, that aren't in yet, but are also prone to having a lot of issues, to staying on QA till they're done, even if it's not till that release, until episode 2 is done, but at least until that system is complete, and fully functional, then I think you'll start to see a reduction in the complaints about broken systems.
Yeah, and I'm the first one to admit we've done pretty poorly at that, and we need to have a better plan for going back and touching up old systems. That's part of why we stopped trying to push as many new systems in as we originally had planned, is so we can go back and polish and work on some things. Yeah, and that's for people who were here from the start. They kind of know that's what's going on, but I agree, and I know we've lost a lot of people who come in, expecting more used to a smaller but very well polished type game, and they come into our game and they don't get all the complexities, and they don't even notice the complexities because they quit due to the lack of polish and bugs and that stuff. So totally acknowledge that that should be better. But yeah, we do need, and that's one of the things. Another I think challenge we've had is there's some things that we felt we really liked, but then once you actually get to it, it doesn't end up being as much fun as we'd hoped. But without having a real offline, ability to try something out for a long time and spend a lot of time on something. I mean, that's not just the offline and the QA aspect of things. That's also just, hey, guess what? We don't have the budget to throw away content, do stuff that ends up not being fun, so we don't put it in the game. So a lot of that stuff, it just goes straight into the game, because we know if we're spending 2 man months or 4 man months on it, that's a big chunk of our development time. That's something that we expect to see in game, even if it's not polished. And quite often that's probably not the right thing to do. As for going on QA though, there's some things that are easy for us to hold and just keep on QA. For instance, like we want to put a skill, we can have a skill that we add to, just on QA, but not move it to live. And there's a bunch of ways we can do that. And that's pretty self-contained. The bigger challenge when we start getting into the more complex the system is and the more things it touches, the tougher it is to just have it on QA. But mounts is one that's pretty easy that we could put in there and just, even if it's as simple as just like, hey, guess what? There's mounts, but you can't get a mount on live. It's only available on QA, so you can't really try it out. So,
well, I could say I know people would be upset, of course, because why wouldn't they? So some people are going to be like, I don't want to play QA. I want that on live. Some people are going to understand, and then you're going to have everybody in between. So I get it, but I can nearly guarantee people will play on QA to test those things out, and you'll make a majority happy. Some people are they're just pissed off at life. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I mean, the other reason for things going QA, it's not even just about bugs, but if we leave stuff on QA longer, we get more time to make sure things, the numbers are right, the values are right, how things work, skills are the right power level, or that type of stuff. Because if we put that stuff out to live and then we take it away, that's the thing players hate more than anything, as we've discovered, or I've discovered over time, is if you don't give them something, that's fine. But if you give them something and they like it, and then you nerf it or take it away, then that's really like the most infuriating thing for all the players out there. So if we actually, we do put a system out there, we don't want to go live, it'd be great if we had the time to leave it on QA for a while, get feedback, change it up there if we wanted to. But
another thing, I think what you'll see is, like, there's only so much we can do in a 30-day QA session, right? and there's only so many different types of systems. I have a lot of viewers that play on Linux, right? And it's a constant battle for those guys. And I know at one point in time there was like they couldn't even play. There was a bunch of people that would come in and they were just like, can't even play, can't even load the game. It won't even load. Obviously I think that stuff is resolved now.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. But some of those guys never saw some of those things on QA because they couldn't even load the game. So they could never test it. So some of those things that went live during that month or whatever it was, their 2, when they couldn't load the game, they never got tested on a Linux system, and so on and so forth. So my point is, when it's on there for 30 days, you have a very limited amount of time, and therefore a limited number of different systems and different configurations of those systems that get to test it. So the longer it's on there, I'm preaching to the choir. I know you know this, but
that's something that I think we've learned some hard lessons along the way, and trying to make sure we get on QA. I think people probably saw that I was pushing to get us moved to a entirely new version of Unity, 2019 versus 2018. And fought with that for a while, but I did not. That's one of those things that probably a year ago I would have pushed out and we would have dealt with it, and we would have been dealing with Fallout forever, and everybody would have been angry. But we were having enough problems that I basically just backed out. In the past, like when we had the Linux version, that was when we pushed out a new Unity release version that had serious issues with it. So I'm trying to be much better about not pushing out new versions without some significant time, at least a couple weeks on QA. And then also not moving the team to the new version, because again, this is one of those things that can be difficult as we move to a new version. Sometimes the data formats are not backward compatible, and then people, if teammate members move, they may move the version, data gets updated in the project, and we can't really go back at that point. That actually happened to us 3 or 4 years ago. We made a big version change. We could no longer go backwards. And we've basically been in the new version for a month before discovering, here's a bunch of major stability issues. So trying to, and that's one of those things, if you have Linux versions out there, you guys should all get together and send Ali Oop some chocolates or cake or flowers or something, because she is absolutely always one of the ones looking out for the Linux users out there and giving us tons of good feedback. She's saved bugs that would have blocked the Linux users a number of times. So go Ali.
So I know you had an hour. So if you got to go, it's 4:00 now, or 3. But I understand. Otherwise, I've got millions of questions. We could do this. We could do this.
I've got to go here in a little while. We're doing homeschooling for my daughter.
All the feelings.
Not even remote schooling. We were doing homeschooling, just because after looking through everything, we didn't think she'd get as much out of doing the remote schooling, because she's advanced in some areas. And then also we thought it would be less work for us. I think it actually is going to be less work, but it's still work. So.
Yeah, no, I 100% understand.
Give me some quick ones. I'll see if I can answer them without babbling too much.
Well, what I was going to do was actually just let you answer questions from chat, because if we do this maybe next release, then we can just pick up, right? I can ask more questions, and then this way chat gets to get their questions in, and I can let you do your thing.
Fire away, guys. I saw some people in there talking about running on higher resolution monitors and frame rates. So one thing I know we do poorly at, and again, it's a limitation. It's partially due to Unity handling it worse than it should, but it's also due to the lighting model we use, the rendering model we use, which is we do not do well on high resolution monitors. So people on 4K monitors or 5K or whatever K they're on now, our resolution does get hammered pretty hard at the higher resolutions. At you know, 1080, it's fine at 1920, 1080. It's amazing for most things. I run on a NVIDIA 2060 is the main card I run because I saw some people asking, what do I consider good frame rates? And on 2060, I get 60 frames per second in most areas. Super heavily decorated towns can bog that down some, but generally that's what I consider good frame rates. But staying above 30 pretty much all the time.
How
But
do you
yeah, if you're running 4K, then yeah, that can die.
how do you know your frame rate? I'm just asking because I think you would be surprised at the frame rates that I get, and I'm running a 2080 Ti with a Threadripper processor.
Yeah, so here's another one of those weird things is the speed of a single fastest core is one of those things that matters way more. If you've watched Marquis Dragon, he was actually running a Threadripper, a 32 core Threadripper with dual video cards, and was not getting good frame rates, not just on Shroud, but basically on any Unity box. And at some point, I talked to him a number of times, but he stopped and he put together a Unity streaming box. So he has his normal box and then he has his Unity streaming box. So he was doing that for a while because really the number of cores doesn't matter that much. It is the speed of the single fastest core, because there's a lot of stuff that is single threaded within the engine that we can't work around that well. And a lot of it comes down to the rendering pipeline. The way they do their engine, there's the thing that will usually end up being the thing that bogs us down is the main rendering thread. Some of it gets thread rendered for those who know Unity stuff. Yes, we are using render jobs, even though that is the number one cause of instability in our game. Is racing threads and Unity rendering stuff, but we are using the Unity thread stuff or the render job stuff, instance rendering, pretty much all the stuff you can do. We are not using the different pipelines. We're using the standard pipeline, but the graphics, basically the main graphics loop is the thing that kills our frame rate in towns, and it's largely due to the number of objects in the town. Just managing the thousands and thousands and thousands of objects. So if you're thinking about like, if there's programmers out there and you're like, well, why don't you just use LODs or culling distance? We use culling layers, we use culling distance, we use culling, we use LODs, we use all that stuff. But for the most part, we also use GPU-based occlusion. The baked occlusion does not work in large scenes. It never has in Unity. And then also most of the stuff in our scenes are dynamic. So we actually use GPU-based occlusion to remove a lot of that stuff. And that is, that's in your options now. You can go and set that in your options. So that's what that one does, is that's moving it, and that'll offload some stuff to the GPU that helps your frame rate some.
Nice.
But
yeah.
it comes down to, if you have a high thread count, but the max speed on the single thread is not as great as the others, then it's still going to be lower performance for something. But again, the two things that are bad performance right now are towns with lots and lots of decos, and lights are pretty heavy in terms of how much they cost, although that's why we keep light limits on there. But really just towns with tens of thousands of decos, which there are some out there that have 100,000 decos. If you go through the entire scene, how many things we're basically having to manage and figure out what to render, what not to render.
That's pretty intense. And I can confirm that when I jump back to my old PC, the one that I went to this one from to make the game run better, interestingly, when I go back to that one, which is I don't even know, it's a 5 gigahertz processor.
Yeah.
It's overclocked to 5 gigs. And it's a 10, and it runs the game significantly better. I would not say flawlessly, but it's actually better. And I upgraded to this partially to deal with some of the issues I was seeing on that machine, and it didn't make it better. It didn't make it better at all. So I was pretty upset. But having had this conversation and having watched Marquis Dragon deal with some of that, and I actually I watched that stream where he was explaining that to somebody.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's not just us. It's pretty much any Unity game, and there's some more different render pipelines where we could control more things, and we could be scripting and handling that stuff. There's still a lot of stuff that's single threaded in there that's outside of our control. It could open up some performance options, but really what we've seen is one, it's an insane amount of complexity. It breaks a lot of the rendering things that we have going on already. And we probably would not see a significant performance improvement. That was one of the reasons I was hoping to get 2019, which one of my streams I pointed out, I did actually have a 2019 build. People could try it if they want to, and I set it up, gave people a Dropbox link so they could download it, and people tried it, and actually the frame rate on that was worse. So that's one of the reasons why I was looking to move forward to a new Unity version. Maybe 2020 Unity will do better. But
Couldn't count on it, but I'm kind of disgruntled with.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. Also, I'm watching, trying not to freak out too much or speculate too much on it. We'll see how it goes. But if you saw Unity release their numbers and they've lost 300 million over the last 2 years, yeah, so they're in the process of trying to do an IPO. But the question is, what happens to Unity going forward if they do not have a successful IPO? When you're losing $150 million a year, that's not a sustainable system, obviously. So
Yeah,
they have to IPO, and we'll see what happens. But we'll find some way to keep things going no matter what, I'm sure. It's just one of those things that I've been saying for a long time. Unity never, I've been yelling at them forever. They should be doing the same thing Unreal did, because that's what everybody else did. You should be, stop keeping the code away from people and stop trying to monetize on SAS type stuff, software as a service, and instead look to other models.
Great. I agree, because then, yeah, once you open it up, then the other people are doing your work for you. Then ultimately,
yeah, and we've had the problem all along that I've not been quiet about. Is that a hype train?
No, it's it was a raid. I think it was a raid. Vic Cannon, thank you so much for the raid.
But yeah, that's I've wanted all along for Unity to open up their code base and let us do things, because the problem is they won't debug our problems. We've tried multiple times to give them our project, and they act like they're interested until we actually give it to them, and then they point out one of the other problems they have, which is, this project would take 3 days to open. How about you pay us $10,000 to take a look at it instead? Which we actually have done in the past, but we won't do it again. We didn't get a benefit out of it. They barely could get the project open in the time they allotted for their engineers. So yeah, so frustrating. We'll see. I think there's some changes coming, hopefully good changes for them, but if nothing else, maybe it'll be maybe if they don't get the IPO, then then they will move to more of an open model, like an Unreal, where they actually let developers help and try and fix things. So
that'd be nice. I think they also need to, my very inexperienced understanding, they need to admit when they're wrong more often, and reach out to the people like AMD or NVIDIA when they are having driver problems.
Yep.
They need to say, okay, yeah, we can't figure it out. AMD, come help us, because obviously we can't figure out what's going on. Because I think that a lot of times holds them back, and I've experienced it myself with them, with Unity games, and because I'm generally on the front of the wave as it goes for hardware. So when that stuff comes out, unless you're a huge AAA, most likely you don't have the drivers the day that stuff launches. So
yeah. Well, the other big issue I've had with Unity that I've been yelling at them, and I've had dinners with some of the high ups at Unity, years ago, where I told them they had to. Again, this is doing what Epic did, and of course, people see the pot calling the kettle black in terms of this, but they don't use their own engine to make significant projects. They do a lot of little demos, but they should be using their own product, which is one of the things that's Epic has done great with Unreal, because they use their own engine to make games. They make their games that are actual full products, and they get the full cycle internal, and they can see what they just, at Unity, they've never done that. And I've actually talked to them. I've talked to them a couple times in the past about, like, you guys would benefit from having us as your, an internal project to help you guys improve your engine. But the talks never went anywhere. And I mean, this wasn't like us demanding like millions of dollars or something. This was more of a, like, let's just get together and mutually do this type of thing. It doesn't cost you guys anything. Let's work together. But it never went anywhere. Again, they don't seem interested in having internal development, which again absolutely hurts them in terms of the quality of the engine and feature sets. So little demos don't cut it in terms of proving things out.
Right. All right. I think you could probably get some more from chat if you got time.
Let's see. Let's see. Scale that plant down, they say.
Yeah, I know.
And yes, to get a frame rate, you can do /debug, and it'll give you the frame rate upper left-hand corner.
That's what I always do. It's always about half what I expect it to be.
So that's one of those things that before this, I mean, I've bounced back and forth between console world and PC world, between the console world and PC. So having people always think like 60, you got to have 60 frames per second. If you have a consistent 30 frames per second, that feels good. Now 60 still feels better. It just feels smoother, feels fun. And it makes a big difference. But a consistent 30 frames per second is something that feels like a high frame rate. The challenge we've always had is things outside our control that do memory allocations within the game. Then we end up getting garbage collection, which then causes hitches. So having a game that runs at 30 frames a second hitches feels bad. And actually a game that runs at 60 but has hitches, and when I'm talking hitches, I'm talking like a 1/10 of a second hitches, not like 2-second hitches. But yeah, so that's like your frame rate there. I would say you're probably at 20 frames per second there, but you're not hitching that much.
I don't have any hitching. The problem is it's constantly saying 14 to 15 frames a second. Now it's saying, well, it went up to almost hit 20. If I sit still, like look at the ground, it'll probably hit 20.
Hit escape and show me your graphics options.
They're probably maxed out if I had to guess. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to look down at the best. That stuff's all fine. So reflection quality, turn that down. Let me help you out. It's one of the top ones. Go scroll up a bit.
Yeah, no, I know it's there, and I know what happens when I turn it down. It does help. It does help. The problem is, I just don't want to.
All right, that's one of those that I think adds very little. I put some optimizations into that a while, like maybe a release or two back, so it's better than it was. So when you were on high before, it was basically every frame that was going to be hammering things. Oh, there's one more. No. Go scroll down one. NAOs, all that stuff is fine. Those won't make that much different. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's the one I want to see. The occlusion, the GPU occlusion. Oh, have you tried the GPU occlusion on? Because that'll offload a lot from your CPU to your GPU.
I think I was told to turn that off, but we'll see. I'll leave it on for sure.
That's one of those that's been off and on. Not some releases, but some driver updates, and that's one that once you turn it on, you may need to zone. I'm trying to remember, but it will cause, when you enter into a scene, it'll cause lag up front. But
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's basically it's building up the occlusion on the fly there, and it'll cause like that type of hitching, but it'll just cause it for a little while as it builds up stuff.
Yeah, I'm all for loading in stuff. If I can load it in while if I'm gonna have to load a scene, then let me load everything in the beginning and not have to deal with it again. I'm totally fine with it. It is somewhat increased. I mean, we're dealing with almost 20s
And
all
once
running around.
and I can tell you what it's doing right here is when you turn that on, it goes and it starts walking through the scene for every graphics object, and it's slowly building up an occlusion base of here's the stuff, and it's adding stuff based on its distance to you. So this time here is where it's the hitches you'll see is occasionally it has to grow some buffers, but it's slowly building up the occlusion data and filing. But anyways, but it does in the long run it helps, but it's one of those things. It's kind of a trade-off because it adds some hitching on the front end of things. It uses about another 200 megs of memory in a big scene. But if you're someone who's very CPU limited instead of GPU limited, then it'll help, anywhere from 5 to 10 frames a second sometimes.
Not really limited in anything except for maybe speed of my processor, but I'll overclock it tonight and find out if that fixes it. That helps, then
it'll help incrementally. It's not going to help a ton,
yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
Help. The GPU stuff, once it's all built up and it's all going and everything's done, which again, it'll a big scene, it'll only take about a minute to finish up.
So what you're saying is someday I'll get 60 frames a second in Shroud of the Avatar.
You'll keep getting more than what you have now. That's kind of what I shoot for, is just trying to improve things over time.
I know, it's fine. I never expected to have that kind of frame rate, to be honest. I never even really knew I needed 60 frames a second until, recently. For me, 30 frames was like where I always wanted to be, so...
Yeah.
But apparently 60 frames is what you want.
60 is what you want. That's in the console world, you pretty much have to be 60. That's one of those things now, of course, if you're going to be doing VR stuff, you've got to be 90 frames a second is where you want to be.
Yeah, I heard that.
But yeah, 60 is kind of in the console world. Is a lot of the, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo guys will fail you, depending on the type of game you are, that they can dock you for frame rates that aren't consistent and high. So. But anyways, yeah, the reflections one is more costly than it should be for the benefits it gives. I usually keep mine on low.
Reflections is only working on water, or is it working? Is there other things that are using reflections also?
There's other things that use it. Other things that use it like are some shiny armor type stuff and those things. What's generally doing is it's building kind of a cube or a map around you of here's things that matter. So it matters on water and it matters on shiny stuff and armor, but not even all shiny stuff and armor.
Well, we got to get that squared away because I got to have some reflections. In fact, I just like running everything at max, so that's part of my problem.
Yeah, and if you buy a big system, you expect to be able to run everything at max.
Yep, that's exactly right.
But again, this is one of those things that is... this is one where, not trying to throw Richard under the bus, but I think people know Richard can be fairly demanding in terms of design requirements and, trying to make the tech is not something that he really thinks about. It's like, we don't care whether it's possible or not. We're just going to do it, and here's the design for it. So Richard can be kind of tough, and that having everything dynamic and lots of changeable stuff, and having scenes where I remember that's early on. There's some times where artists and world builders got into a lot of arguments. The lead world builder especially got into a few heated arguments with him because the lead world builder wanted to do things like have buildings you couldn't go into in towns to help space out the complexity of towns. And that was an absolute no-no for Richard, that he did not want to have any open buildings whatsoever. Hey, thank you very much, Zart.
Thank you for the follow.
But yeah, Richard did not want to have any buildings. He wanted or empty buildings. He wanted to have everything that's there. He wanted you to be able to walk into a town, and you walk into Brittany, and if there's 100 buildings there or 1,000 buildings there, probably more like 200 in Brittany. He wants you to be able to go in any one of those buildings. He wants there to be someone in there of interest. He wants you to be able to go over to the book and take a book off the bookshelf. He wants you to be able to go to the candle on the desk and light it or take it. So a lot of these things, they're just in a complex 3D world. While that's pretty possible in a 2D world, when you get into a complex 3D world, it gets really tough. And then also with a restricted budget of what we had for the team, trying to get the polish and the planning for that stuff. The world builders, given the time that they had, they did a great job. But there's a lot of stuff that I know we would have done differently if we'd had a bigger budget. Or, I think a lot of that's one of those things we don't really talk about that much. But that's it's not so much that we had a small budget, compared to another MMO. We obviously had, a full blown MMO, not a, mass market MMO. We had a small budget, but the bigger challenges we had is we never knew how much money we had to make the game. We never knew how much time we had. We never knew how many, man months, because we weren't funded up front. We were funded along the way. So
Right.
that was one of those very interesting challenges in terms of things.
I think I would have told them, I would love for all of those things to be true as well, but realistically, it's not possible. And even if you look at games today, the big games, like the big open world games that do as much of that as they can, either if everything's enterable and everything has some point of interest, there's like 5 things, or they don't have everything enterable. It's just, even for those big games that got hundreds of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars budget and teams of like office buildings full of people, they still don't do that.
Yep.
So I think it's kind of crazy to do it in today's day and age. Maybe in 10-20 years we'll be there, but not today. And I think it was very ambitious to try to shoot for that.
Yeah. Is that your fish tank behind you?
Yeah, it is my fish tank.
Nice.
People have been saying that I'm copying you, but I had the fish tank before you had yours.
Yeah, I did fish back in college and after into my 20s, but after I had like a couple moves in a row, basically ditched all the fish tanks when I knew I was going to have to move several times. It's trying to move a 240-gallon fish tank is not a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's not even possible. But
mine's not that large. This is 65. So, and what you're seeing is about maybe 10 gallons of it. You're not seeing the whole tank. I have a camera. The camera's not that far away. It's literally right on the glass. So.
Looks good. And I just saw Shaner Niner give you some money there. Somebody else,
Yes.
88. Thank you guys. Thank you. But also, I want to mention Shaner Niner. After that last stream we did, one of the comments that people made, largely due to Shaner Niner and some of the other super generous people, is when they get the hype train going in our streams.
Yeah.
Do extra giveaway rounds. So that was something players brought up last time. So from now on in our Friday streams, when we do our thing, if we get like the hype train, get to, I think Elgarion set this up, and he was talking to, I forget who he was talking to, but it's something the players had actually asked for. Is like, you should reward us with that stuff. But I think if we get to level 3, we're going to do 1 extra round. If we get to level 4, we'll do 2 extra giveaway rounds. And if we get to level 5, we'll do 3 extra giveaway rounds. So.
Hell yeah, that's cool. I think that's a good way to do it.
And it seems like one of those things we usually get there anyways to whatever. But anyway, so we'll do more giveaway rounds for those things. Just mention that since I saw Shaner Niner and that was a name I know.
Yeah, Shaner and Bo. Bo likes to donate bits because for every 500 bits, I eat one of these gross jelly beans that taste disgusting. So he loves to come in here and cause me to I think one night, yeah, Mr. Chadwick. One night I had to do 44.
Nice.
It was awful, actually. So yeah, so I killed the camera just so you could see, because obviously my fat head in the way, it's hard to see the fish. But
Yeah, that's cool.
those are
I
cichlids and catfish.
guess those look like all Africans.
There's all Africans except for the one South American, the peacock. That's
Yeah, that's
you
you
see
start
that
doing.
that one blue one is like doing a crazy shake thing in front of the camera.
Oh, yeah, mating dance.
That's a mating dance, exactly. Funny.
Yeah, that's the I of course got this fish tank, but the wife is the one who really is even more into fish recently than I have been, and pushing me to put more fish tanks together for her. And that's actually for her birthday, which is today. Happy birthday to her. I set her up a 150-gallon tank for rams and apistos. But she loves her rams and apistos, and then also killifish. But yeah,
Nice.
the rams do that same little dancey, shaky, dancy thing, and
Yep.
it's crazy.
They also mouth brood. These ones carry the eggs in their mouth until they hatch.
They do not mouth brood. Some South Americans do. Rams lay eggs, but they are monogamous. They form bonds.
Yep.
Male and female form bonds, and they guard the eggs pretty heavily. So we actually keep a bunch of rams in a tank, and then when they lay eggs, we pull the mama and dada and the eggs out and give them their own 20-gallon long
Yep.
tank to raise their eggs in. So
Yep.
yeah, if
Yeah,
you want to
that's
see
cool.
a mating dance, now we're talking entirely too much about fish, but if you want to see a mating dance, we have some dwarf pikes, and their mating dance is like crazy. It's like one above, and they dance, and then they do like some, like they've got like a whole little ritual dance that they
I
do.
heard caviar, Vic. Nice. Bo says tell the wife happy birthday.
Will do. She's having a good birthday. She got her blue Galaris killifish. It came in the mail a day early. So that was her other birthday present.
Very nice. I don't know if you got more. If you want to take more questions from
Give me
chat, I know
one
you.
more question here. Let me look at one more question here since I wasted time with the fish talk.
Len's got some questions or issues about towns. Did you guys make some changes with that?
I'm not sure what changes on the town. I'm looking. Let's see.
About rebuilding. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't a question. Sorry, I don't mean to call you out, Len.
Let's see. I'm scrolling back up here to see. Yeah, Elrond, King of Elves, mentioned something that we won't do the connections anymore. So that's part of why we did the signpost and the teleporter stuff between towns, is so you guys can control that stuff yourself. And that was largely because, again, as I try to look at what the team is spending time on. Sanyo is absolutely freaking amazing, just like most people on the team. But he was spending entirely too much time on pots and connections. I mean, literally 3 or 4 days each release was being spent on hand creating connections. And then we were charging when we had to charge like a $25 service ticket to get that done. And then you guys would usually have to wait until the next release. It was bad in all areas. So that's when we added in the signpost. It, like, one, it saves us a ton of time. Two, it's cheaper and faster for you guys.
So
yeah.
same topic. Shaner Niner asks if you can connect to multiple places with the same boat. He doesn't want to own 15 boats in.
So that's one thing Wizard Smoke is still working on and refining. I don't think we have that yet. I'm not sure if there's a reason we don't have that. He may have set up a 1-to-1 type connection. If so, then yeah, that's not.
I can understand why you wouldn't want someone to, because then literally why not just let them connect to every town, and then what's the point? I could see limiting it to a certain number, but only for just usability, right? I mean, if every town can link to every town, then why not just make a town link to every town instead of 5 connections? Sounds reasonable to me as per item. That sounds reasonable to me, Shaner. I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Again, I don't know how he's set up, how Wizard Smoke set up the data in it. So yeah, we want to limit it. We didn't want to have like, here's the one place you can go and you can get to everywhere. Just again, it makes the world feel too small.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to come up with a set number.
Cool.
Let's see. And Eileen, I'll have to, I don't know what Elgaran has told you. I know there's been some drama on that front. Again, my energy's been pretty low the last 4 or 5 days just due to mysterious whatever's going on in the Spears household right now. But I've been trying to not get pulled into that too much, Eileen. So sorry for not jumping in more on that. All right, speaking of low energy and getting drained, let me go ahead and get off here so I can go get Maxine started on her schoolwork before we have to jump into dinner.
All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for coming. I know a lot of people in chat were hoping to be able to ask lots of questions, and I preface this whole thing with they can come to your stream and ask you guys questions. They get the full access to you there, so I wanted to utilize the time to ask you some stuff that was near and dear to my heart specifically, and we covered it. So I appreciate you for doing that. Get on, Mr. Chadwick. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much, and hopefully we can do this on the next release Thursday, as long as it doesn't get crazy. Feel free to reschedule. Obviously, like I'm completely flexible. If you need to. All for it.
We can plan on it, but yeah, this release, for those who don't know, we were supposed to do this last Thursday, but as people saw, the release went live and everybody's plants were going to die, and I had to rush out an emergency patch for that, and then I immediately had to follow that up with another emergency patch. We had 2 patches on release day, which I think that may have been the first time we've ever had that or done that. But yeah, hopefully next release will be a little better, a little more relaxed, and I'll be able to join you on release day.
Yeah, that'd be great. And again, just shoot me something. I start at 2 p.m. Eastern, so that's obviously 1 your time. If you want to just shoot me something, 1, 2 o'clock your time to let me know.
Yeah, we usually know by noon how bad the day is going to be.
There you go. Well, then if you know it's going to be bad, just let me know. And even if it's not going to be bad and you're just not up to it because you were up till the ass crack of dawn like you seem to be every day and you're just not feeling it, then just let me know. I'm flexible, and I'm definitely not gonna chastise you for being cool and coming on my stream. I just don't see that happening. So I appreciate it, and if you can't make it, you can't make it. But if we can plan for next release Thursday, which is 3 weeks away, or is it this one of the long releases or short releases? I can never.
Yeah, so it's 3 weeks away. So yeah, this is the 30th is on a Wednesday. So
okay,
next release will be a 5-week release. This one's a 4-week release though.
Okay, so the 24th.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Well, shoot. I see Gwendolyn making a point of it would be better for the week after. So sometimes it is, but usually on release day, 2/3 of them, it goes pretty smoothly. And really what I'm looking for is just looking to get in the players' faces and talk to them and hear feedback on stuff. So if we can do it on release day and the release is going smoothly otherwise, then release day works for me.
Yeah.
We'll delay a week.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. If you can't make it, we can push it out a week. It's not going to hurt my feelings, and if it helps you guys, then I know chat will be perfectly fine with it. Thank you so much for coming, man. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, chat, for being good. I appreciate that as well. I don't know. I'll let you go. Say whatever you got to say, but chat, I'm going to take a quick break once Chris is gone. So
all right, STN0. So the fish The one fish should be fixed. It was fixed yesterday afternoon in the client, but people were making it and they were still getting the wrong things. That's because we forgot to push the server report out. We have this weird bug right now where Unity crashes every other time we're building our server reports. We've not had a chance to look into what particular thing it's crashing or whatever. And we didn't notice that it had crashed that time, and so our server reports didn't get pushed out. So the server report got pushed out afterwards. But it should be working now for all but one type. I forget which one it is, but there's one lava fish that did not get fixed until shortly after that. I can try and get that fixed for a patch for tomorrow. I already see there's a couple things we need to do a patch for. So your fish should be working if you do them now. I know some fish got destroyed, got turned into the wrong type of statue. So sorry about those. We can look into replacing those on a first come, first served basis. But yeah, sorry about the fishing stuff. That was not me. But yeah, sorry that took so long to fix. And we'll get another patch out tomorrow. And I guess that's it, guys. Again, thank you. We'll see you. I'll be on stream tomorrow too. You can ask me some more questions then. I do plan on being on that. Maybe low energy again, but thanks for having me, Silvertree, and I'll see you in 3 weeks, I guess.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have
Talk
a
to you
great
later.
day.
Bye.
All right, chat. Give me just a few moments, and I will be right back. And yes, Grode, I saw you say eat a bean, and I will shortly. Not right this second. Guys are just trying to make me kill myself in front of those. Rude. All right, boys. That just about wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. But one last thing, in case you haven't already, make sure you get over to the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Silvertree Consortium. We're live right now. Check out these highlights from the stream. It says Trinidad bitch, actually. She's warm. Oh, Jesus. 1,000 for a bean dipped in the hot sauce. I don't care which one. Use maximum caution and make sure you have a second pair of underwear. What the fuck? So, same hot sauce, as a side note. A dead fish jelly bean. So there it is. Bean in the hot sauce. I hate you guys. Just throwing it out there. Just so you know.